when I write a text, my sentences are periods and capitals and all of those kinds of things. And yet these other generations do not interact that way and don't quite see it that way. And I think what I'm hearing from the industry is, I don't relate to these people and what we need to do is, as opposed to they're different, is embrace these differences.
Welcome, everybody, to the Performance Revolution web series powered by Entegra. I'm so excited to have two incredible guests, my friend Val and my friend Peter, to drive a great conversation today around recruitment and retention. The goal of this web series is to drive conversation that allows industry leaders with experience to share best practice. And so we can not only consume information, but we have enough information and context so we can execute. That hopefully gives us that rev to allow us to produce the results that we want to deserve in 2025. So that said, we want to jump right into it. Before I do intros, Val, I'd love to ask you a question. Mm-hmm. So what's one lesson, if you could, in all of your experience and your leadership journey, even before you started your entrepreneurial journey, if you could go back and teach that lesson to your 20-year-old self, what would that lesson be that would help you grow faster, quicker, stronger?
I always think the thing I tell people is just to be curious. Never stop learning. I mean, I think I was pretty good at that, but I do tell people that all the time. It's just, you never know where you're going to be in 5 years and 10 years, and you want to keep everything open. So, if I was a restaurant manager, then I went to study HR, and then I got into HR. I wanted to get more into wine, so I did my wine courses. I think you're just opening up more things for yourself. The number one thing I get calls for is people trying to figure out maybe an adjacent way to go or how to change their career a bit. So if you're always curious and always learning, then you're just keeping all the doors open all the time. And I think that's what I tell young people all the time.
About where do you think you caught that kind of bug for learning? I know some of the people you had an opportunity to be mentored around early in your career, but where did you catch that kind of energy and want and desire to continue to learn and develop yourself?
I mean, my dad was a university professor. My mom was a kindergarten teacher. That was always about that. If you want to learn something, this was before the internet, go get the big book. We had to get the dictionary out and look up the word. And then in my professional career, I had people that pushed me. They said, you seem to have a really good nose. Why don't you study wine? You seem to be good at training. Why don't you do that? So I think it was in me as a child, but I had people that sort of pushed me in that direction.
I think it's a great way to start, right? When we talk about retention, is finding an environment for what you want and need that gives you that push, right? Mm-hmm. Sometimes we think push is challenge, but sometimes, like for me, I'm somebody who craves an environment that really gives us that push. So Peter, I'd love to kind of open up with you and share a little bit of experience from yourself to the audience. But what's one key lesson Entegra has learned through its work with hospitality leaders that you believe could accelerate their growth and success?
Yeah, thanks, Matt, and good morning. People matter. And I think what I hear consistently across the industry is without great employees, it's very difficult to be successful. And, that comes in a whole bunch of different ways, shapes, and forms. But, up front, the time that you put in from a hiring perspective matters. I think that when you hire good people, you put the time in, you investigate, as opposed to just like fill in a hole, because that can generally cause you some problems. So you hire good people who have experience, who can give you some good behavioral information about what they've done in their past, really validate who they are and what they can do for you. And I think that sets you up for success, because they're the backbone of your organization. And if you don't have great people, then it's going to be a challenge.
And I love the answer, Peter, just from your experience, what does it feel like when you're working with somebody who you can tell has a great team? I know we can talk about kind of the steps and processes, but is there just, when you meet with somebody, can you get a feel for the team and their engagement, or just how easy it is to execute or get clear on strategies? Like, what does a great team feel or look like to you when you get exposure to it?
There is a feeling you can tell how a kitchen or an operation works and runs, because it basically runs by itself. If you hire people who understand what the vision is and have the motivation and the capability to actually go and do the work without having to ask 1,000 questions, right? They don't wait to be told what to do. They know instinctively what to do. Yeah. You have to there's ownership in the people that lead those organizations. You can't just assume people are going to know. You got to put the time in again up front. You got to train people. But the feeling is wonderful when it's a bit of an orchestra. Everyone knows the instrument that they're playing. Everyone plays it very well, and then the music that comes out of it in the way of food is tremendous. But it takes, you got to practice at that, and you got to make sure you get the right talent. But you can tell, you can feel it.
Mm.
And I think for the audience listening, there's a great best practice shared right there of kind of a push-pull concept. And there's an opportunity as we look to recruitment and retention to find some of our people need to be pushed as they develop and build their confidence. And some we've got to pull as they continue to develop and lead. But the opportunity is to look at your team and say, do they self-start? Can they take direction? Can they make their own decisions? Can you still coach and lead? The opportunity as we look to our conversation today is what's shared from our experts that we've invited to join and add value to this conversation is how can we stay curious a little bit longer? So some of what's shared today, I just want to think about it. Some of what's going to be shared today, you're going to find resistance and it might push against your current beliefs. Some you're going to fully buy into. What we want is hopefully there's those little best practice shares like Peter just shared of something is how can you spend time with yourself or your team just to stay curious a little bit longer? So we wanted to share some context up front. What I'd love to do now is just get into an introduction. And Val, I'd love to start with you. Mm-hmm. Just tell the audience a little bit about yourself, what you do and who you support.
Yeah. So I'm an executive recruiter in the hospitality space. So that would be restaurants, hotels, clubs, entertainment, anything like that. So I help them find people, basically managers and executive in hospitality. But my background is operations in restaurants. So again, I started bartending at university. When I was taking business at university, I really was starting to think, restaurants that's a business I can get into. That's where I can make this my career. So as usual, you sort of end up managing. I moved to Australia, managed, moved back to Canada, was managing. And then I got, like I said, I did my wine stuff. I really loved the industry, but I wanted to do something a little bit different. University, I did HR. So I pitched to the owners of the company I worked for a long time, actually, why they needed an HR department. They only had 3 restaurants at the time. And after about a year, the owners are like, okay, just start the HR department. I don't want to hear about it anymore. So I did. I had start this HR department, and I grew it from about 3 restaurants to about 25 restaurants and grew the HR team as well. So that was exciting. I stayed in that role for about 10 years. And then about 12 years ago, I moved into recruiting. So in that way, I was able to still stay in the industry, help the industry, be in a place that I loved, but be able to use my brain a little bit different way and just focus on that recruitment and that retention piece. So I think it's made me a bit unique because I started in operations, then I went to HR, and now recruiting. So I can look at the overall picture of the industry in a little bit of a different way.
I love that. And there's 2 things you shared about. One that I think we can all learn from is that hospitality or restaurants can be a career. And just sake of conversation, we'll focus on today. But I know when Val created that HR department, we don't need to go into the client, but everybody would know it if we shared it. The leaders and what that HR department built a foundation of leaders that have spread across the world, but in Canada, some of the leaders that were brought on, inspired, engaged, that delivered an experience inside these restaurant concepts. These 25 restaurant concepts were remarkable. Some of the best leaders I've ever had the opportunity to work with then and now.
Mm-hmm. A lot of people came out of that. It's actually, it's always, my friends always joke, everywhere you go, they're like, why does everyone know you? Because the industry is so connected and everyone really came out of that company for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Thanks, Val. And Peter, just same question. Tell us a little bit about yourself, kind of what you do and who you support.
Yeah, thank you very much, Matt. I am currently the VP of Client Services for Entegra Procurement Services. I've only been in this role for 15 months, so a new thing for me after a long career in consumer packaged goods, specifically in the food sector. The team I lead is the client services team. So we call on existing clients of Entegra and we support them in managing cost within their facilities, right? Drive efficiencies and productivities. We don't mandate, we advise, and we do everything we possibly can to support their business and help it run effectively across numerous food and non-food categories. My past is has kind of helped inform me doing this job. It's a little bit different than what I've done forever. I started driving a truck once upon a time in Calgary in 1988 at Pepsi, and was there for 23 years. Ultimately, worked my way up, and I hard work and good timing, and listening a lot, learning, making some mistakes, but. Leadership is, I'm a sales guy, but leadership is kind of what's kept me going through all of this. Also spent some time in beverage alcohol. I was in gaming for some time. I've been on the distributor side of the organization. So all of these different areas, I think, have really worked well to help me fit into this procurement business, because it really does touch on all of those things. So it's been wonderful for me. I mean, leadership is the most exciting thing for me, helping people grow, helping people learn, helping achieve targets and deliver great outcomes. But yeah, no, it's been a long ride, and I'm certainly enjoying myself here and learning. I heard Val say earlier, a continual learning process. I was quite amazed how much I didn't know about procurement when I joined this company last September. So, the first 3-6 months was a bit of a challenge, but certainly now I've been drawing on my experiences that I just mentioned, and I think really starting to add value for our clients and our team members.
I love it. And one question is there one lesson that you had as you embrace the new role? Like, was there one as you decided to make the transition and change into the new position, or just something that you experienced when you did? Is there some takeaway from the last 18 months of that journey, from kind of starting a new position to now, that's just that you really welcomed it, or might have been more challenging, even with all the success and growth in your career? Something is a little bit more challenging than you expected as you integrated into the new role.
Yeah, no, great question. I mean, I very much had to rely on my experience in the past roles, and Pepsi was definitely one of the most strong and the longest. But I'll go back to my comment, and Val said it. I really had to allow myself to almost fail in a way, but to really had to learn this business, because it's different, and that's okay. Like It was new to me, and it was something that I wasn't exactly sure how all the pieces fit together to create the puzzle. So I asked a lot of questions. I very much relied on my staff. I had to learn from them so I could then be a more effective leader in the future and today with them. So allowing myself to be vulnerable and ask a lot of questions and say, you know what, I don't know, but I promise I'll learn and be able to help in the future. And I think that's gone away in building credibility for me with my teams. And I think that's kind of what we're talking about today is, what's leadership all about? How do you retain people? And I think authenticity is important.
Yeah. Mm. I just like a slight pause there in what was shared, right? Is the curiosity, learn from our people. You can feel the cultural energy, right? And I'm not trying to be cheesy here, but you can feel that I'm going to go and learn and be curious, continue to develop even with my experience. And the one thing, just for the audience today, my role is to ask questions. What I want you to take you have the opportunity to do is see yourself inside the question. So when I'm asking Val a question for her experience, there's something she can share there, and we can all see ourselves in Val's experience. I think we can all see ourselves in what Peter just shared, because he shared what a great cultural experience looks like. But ask yourself now, are you in an environment where there's question asking, communication, vulnerability, candor, or are you not? There's no right answer or judgment. As a leader, are you providing the opportunity for question answering, direction? And it's all age and stage. We have no judgment. The three of us, it's all to add value. It's how do we all learn and grow from our current position to support our teams? Because without engagement, we know the turnover rates inside of our industry, which we may touch on a little bit later. We'll see if we have the opportunity. But Val, I wanted to jump into you in our first question here is, what's the biggest pain point or challenge in the industry when it comes to recruitment and retention? And what's the real conversation that needs to be had? And I think there's what I'm surprised about, there's so much dialogue out there, but I think that there's kind of a center point of let's get to the heart of it. Yeah.
And I think we've all heard this. We've already brought it up, is this sort of perception or this idea that there's a lack of talent, that, there's people out there, but people aren't that great anymore, or it's not the way it used to be. We did have a lot less people a couple of years ago, and that was hard. People were just, there was a lack of people. Now it seems to be better, but still people are saying, yeah, there's people out there, but not the kind of people that we want. And I think that pain point can be changed. And Matt, you brought it up, that we need to change the perception of what the industry is. We can't be talking about, and there's still the idea that it's a temporary job where you're finding another career. It's something you're just doing while you're going to university or until you're doing something else, or while you're doing something, it's not looked at as a career. What we need to do is get just the word out as an industry. We can't be very siloed. We can't be like restaurants, hotels, hospitality as a whole. We need to change your perception that there are a lot of jobs out there. And I'm an example of that. And Peter's an example of that. It started as driving a truck for, food service or hospitality. I started as a bartender. Matt, you started out like in those sorts of roles as well. So I think it's changing the idea, and that needs to start with parents. So hospitality people need to get out there and have that conversation with parents about, if your kid comes home and says they want to be a doctor or they want to be a sell insurance or whatever, and you're okay with that, but you're not okay if they say they want to get into restaurants. And I was at a conference a couple of years ago, senior women leaders in hospitality. And the message from all these keynote speakers were, when they got home and they told their parents they wanted to be in restaurants or hospitality, their parents were like, no way, you're not doing that. So I think it's starting with that conversation, getting there with the kids when they're younger, and making people understand there's tons of jobs to do. There's tons of great careers out there. And that'll help fix this pain point of there not being good people, because if we are able to keep people in the industry that are doing a great job, then we're going to take away a bit of that, there's no one out there. There's no one that wants to be. We have to find the people that want to be in hospitality and restaurants. And the only way we can do is that change the perception that's not a temporary job. It's a career job.
Yeah, I think, and just as you shared there, some personal story. When I grew up, I remember my parents telling me what I shouldn't do. And I shared some examples. I didn't have exposure to the restaurant industry, but where I did have exposure, I wanted to be a cop, and my mom said, you can't spell. So you can't be, I'm like, okay. And I wanted to be in TV, like TV production. My dad said, hey, don't make any money. I still remember those core moments. I was probably 8, 9, or 10 years old. It's like, come home excited about something that was shared. But I think what Val shared there is, how do we change the conversation? So how do we educate the marketplace on the incredible opportunities that exist inside hospitality? And there's 2 brilliant tracks of Val starting as a bartender and moving her way to one of the most influential people in hospitality in Canada, and Peter starting as a truck driver and moving it with a vice president title of one of the biggest companies operating and leading a team. Like this is what exists in our industry. Should we create that opportunity? So thanks, Val, for sharing that. Val, I'm going to actually come back to you again, and then we're going to go back to Peter. But is there one thing that an operator should focus on to improve their recruitment efforts? And we're having 2, they're not siloed, but they're connected conversations. We're going to start with recruitment, we're going to move to retention. But is there one they should focus on to improve their recruitment efforts? What action should they take in order to do that?
Well, and this is actually very much related to what I just spoke about. I think the flexibility part is the biggest thing, I think, as an industry as a whole, that we have to change our mindset about, is that we are still stuck doing the things the same way that we've always done things. If you're going to work in restaurants, you have to work this many hours, you have to work nights and weekends, you have to do all these things. That's not going to fly anymore. So how are we going to get those good people to come in? How are we going to convince parents to let their kids study hospitality or get into restaurant management if they still have this perception that you can't, you're just working nights and weekends, you can never do anything else. So I think having the idea that you can do flexible things, how many times do you hear about restaurants doing job sharing or, part-time hours for managers or things like that other industries have been doing for a long time? We as an industry need to fix that too. And I think it was Conference Board of Canada just said by 2025, 30% of restaurant employees are going to be involved in some sort of gig work. So they're going to be doing something on the side. So if that's the case, then why can't we have something different like that in restaurants as well? So the flexibility piece is more important right now. I hear from lots of HR leaders that sure, money and benefits, those all still mean a lot. But what means more to people right now is flexibility. Work from home, hybrid opportunities, that sort of thing is really going to be able to attract people and keep people. And then that helps parents think differently. So, it helps solve a lot of things, I think.
Yeah. And that's probably one of the things that I really want people to hear as we push up against resistance.
Yeah.
Flexibility. Like when I talk to
a lot of resistance about it.
You got to
want to do it.
You got to work 80 hours a week. You got to work lots of hours with friends and family. And sure, some of that's the reality of our interest.
Yeah.
And I think Peter has some stuff to share us. We have multiple generations in the workplace right now. We have 4 generations.
Yeah, 4 generations.
Some common needs, some unique needs. I think we have the opportunity to see our people. We don't have one style of employee. The work that we do around retention is we have different employee avatars. What do employees want to need, and how do we provide that? Peter, to your side, are you hearing similar challenges from your partners? And what do you feel is the opportunity to focus and change that recruitment element? Like, what are you seeing in your experience around the topic of recruitment?
Sure, thank you. I would agree with everything that Val said. The issues are the same. The challenges are the same. What I will tell you, and something we talked, you just briefly mentioned the generational stuff. I was just in a meeting in Orlando, and we had a keynote speaker, and Dr. Catherine Jeffrey was her name, and her whole point was these generations that we're dealing with today. And I was blown away, quite frankly, about how, I'm a boomer, the very tail end of boomers, but how different I am, and exactly what she, had researched says what I do, right? When I write a text, my sentences are periods and capitals and all of those kinds of things. And yet these other generations do not interact that way and don't quite see it that way. And I think what I'm hearing from the industry is, I don't relate to these people and what we need to do is, as opposed to they're different, is embrace these differences, because the wealth of ideas and energy that is available from people of different generations needs to be very important as we move forward, right? And very valuable to a health of an organization. The challenge, of course, is for people like me, or who may be Gen X, whatever the case may be, is understanding how to properly communicate with those individuals, because it is different, right? Like, non-caps, and I just learned the other day that ... is actually a bad thing, and I'm just talking about all the time.
It is.
My kids tell me. My kids told me that too.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, it just means we're thinking. We're just saying, I don't know.
Yeah. No, it's so very valuable lessons that I think, people who are in leadership in restaurants and the hospitality industry need to understand that we need to communicate a little bit differently, lead a little bit differently, because the challenges are the same. So if we're going to embrace and get these people in, as Val saying, people are maybe being pushed away from the hospitality industry because of the hours of the weekends, whatever the case may be. Like, there are a lot of people out there, and culturally, right? There's people, immigration, etc. There's a lot of talent. We just need to make sure we understand it so that we can and embrace it, to bring them in and make them feel welcome and effective to really help drive our businesses forward. It is quite amazing the amount of resources that are there if we learn how to tap into it appropriately.
I love that. And I think and it's a really loud takeaway from both of you, is the opportunity to take some time to understand what do our people want and need, not just how we've grown up in the industry. I'm going to share a really quick story here. I was working with an executive chef, and about 20 of the people that worked under her, she ran a large multi-site restaurant group. She's from the East Coast, from where Peter is from. She's from Halifax, powerful leader, very skilled, loves her people, hard on her people. So we're doing a workshop, and we have this exact conversation, and she stands up at the start of the workshop and she says very loud, "Matt, I can't do this. I cannot communicate this way. I grew up this way, and this is how I expect." And she went quiet for the rest of the 3-hour workshop. But she said, "Matt, at the end of the session, can I have 15 minutes? And she said, "I just took the last 3 hours to listen to the group. And I realized through this session, I need to change. My communications styles got me here," because they were always short about 20% of their back house staff, no matter what they did and who they paid and who they brought into that organization. But the opportunity was, there's great things every leader's out there is doing, but where's the opportunity to involve? And as Val and Peter just shared, see it from their perspective. And I think what Val's sharing, that we're talking about that in retention, we're not going to get even people through to your stage of the interview if we're not talking to their wants and needs in your job ad, in your screening interviews, and your post interviews. They have the leverage now. There's a shortage of leaders in our industry, and it's going to grow. I saw some of the statistics in the U.S. that we have a major gap of staff and leaders coming in the next 3 years. It's a big one, so we need to be different in order to recruit.
Yeah.
Thank you. There's, again, great sharing that I hope that we can all kind of sit on for a second to see where that lands for us. But coming back, Val, if we move to retention, what separates top performing teams from average teams when it comes, and we can talk about leader retention, right? It can be leader and employee. We're talking about not just frontline or part of house staff, but it could be retaining your general manager, AGM, or your directors. But what's kind of the retention lesson that we should all be kind of paying attention to right now?
And I think that if I think about the operators that, there's some, as a recruiter, I'm talking to people all the time and moving people from place to place, restaurant to restaurant, whatever. And there's some companies that people just don't leave. They can retain their managers like no one else. And it's not, and they pay less overall. And really, they pay less. They've got, they have stuff, they have benefits, but they're not, that I can sometimes say to someone, this job will offer you $40,000 more a year, and they still won't leave. And I think what it comes down to, and what I hear is that, whatever, it may sound a bit cheesy, I don't know how to say it in it, but like a sense of belonging. They have this, they're part of a team. The people that there care about them. It really is it's really just that. I think that's what it is. Everyone will say, yeah. So money means more. Money means more. People want to be paid more. And yes, of course, people need to pay their bills. But that sense of belonging and feeling a part of something is what I see makes people or companies stand out for that retention. They can keep their people for a long time, and not because they're paying more money. So I think it's kind of a cop-out when people say, well, I can't pay what so-and-so pays. I'm a small company. It doesn't have to be like that. It's really that feeling that they have from working somewhere, I think.
Yeah. And the one thing, if we want to look at the data behind it, the Gallup organization does the largest staff engagement survey every 3 years. They survey 8 million people across 8 business sectors, so approximately 1 million people per. And some of the questions is, does my company or my teamwork do quality of work? Do we care about why we exist? And there are 12 yes or no questions. There's no gray area. But the statistics always come back when my employer and my team, and it's not the sign on the that we pass to come in or what's on the menu, it's the people. We work directly for people, and when that has purpose, I don't want us to hear the right pals. When there's a leader that's offered $40,000 more, they might stay in their existing culture because of what it means and their purpose existing.
And they know they're important, and they're like, yeah, sure, I'd like to make $40,000 extra a year, but the company I work for now believes in me. They give me opportunity. I'm safe here. I feel like I'm part of something. So it's not really worth it for the money. And that's an interesting thing, because we all think that people are just going to move from, sometimes what do you mean you're not going to? But it makes sense. People just crave that. And I think even more so now when people are less around people because of our phones, there's even more of that. And it has to be practice what you preach too, right? That's the other thing, is that people can feel like they're coming into an organization that makes you feel a part of something. Because your vision says this and your mission says this, and that's what it says. But if you're not actually doing it, then that's sure you want to have a sense of belonging, but you're not actually legitimately doing it.
And as a coach, I spent about 20% of my year in development, and I went to a course. It's 7 days long, 18 hours a day. They focused 3 days on what Val just shared. The absolute necessity and human need to have trust, which we all understand. But what's underlying trust is safety. Do I feel safe in the environment? The pandemic took safety away from our industry because we were, again, not to get on the topic, but somewhat villainized, right? And we didn't know if restaurants will exist, and they're contracting, and what did it look like? Open, close, open, close. So our opportunities as leader for sit across from someone, make sure they trust you in your human-to-human connection. But it's our opportunity as leaders to make them feel safe. And I understood safety, but no way to the degree is not as a employment opportunity. I need to make my kids feel safe. I need to make my friendship feel safe. I need to make my partnerships at work feel safe. Peter, before we move on to the next question, any thoughts there around just safety, trust, what that might look like for you, or what you think about what Val just shared?
Well, certainly safety. If you don't feel safe in your workplace, you're probably not going to stay. Retention is so critical to an effective running organization. I'll go back to some of the stuff I was talking about, generations, right? But not all generations look for maybe recognition, which is a big part of retention, the same, right? Like my generation was more about public recognition, right? And maybe some of it monetary, whatever the case may be, or here's the trophy for, hard worker of the year award. But today it's maybe just for some of these generations, it's not that. It's more subtle. It's a pat on the back, just a little, subtle thank you for all that effort that you did. And those things go a long way. Again, I think we need to learn it, but, retention is a key piece. It's not just hiring. And again, I talked a little bit about, how to hire, not the right way, but just investment in time to hire so that people do stay. But once you get them in, they have to trust you. They have to feel safe. You got to listen, and you got to think about how we recognize great behavior, reward great behavior, because it isn't just money. It is about being safe. It is about being a part of a team. It is about doing something great and having great experiences for clients or whatever that you have. I mean, it's a challenging one. Again, I think the resources is there, but you don't want to have a revolving door. That's going to be a problem. So if you can get them in, you get the right people in, and you can reward and recognize them and listen, I think it goes a long way. I mean, certainly from an Entegra standpoint, we get it, we hear it, and we have tools and things that are available to our clients that can help them retain employees as well, or source employees. But ultimately, leadership matters, and you need to make sure that it isn't just you're there for 8 hours and go to work. It's got to be more than that.
Yeah, I don't know why this lands to me just with the timing when we're doing the recording. So I remember feeling unsafe with it. I worked in the beer industry. And I was on this great track and told I was going to move to this boss role. But I saw 2 years in a row, they let go a chunk of leadership, but 20% of the leadership team around every December 15th to 20th. 2 years in a row, I watched my friends. Sorry, I don't know why I just had an emotional reaction. I got tears in my eyes. I'll pull them back. But I had a dear friend of mine have to go home and tell his wife and his 3 kids and he was crushing it. His district changed. And it was a transition and change. That company's rebounded incredibly well, and they're the world leader in what they do. But there was a point of friction and change where I looked at, even though I could be a boss, that I fit the culture. And when I left, my boss actually handed my resignation letter back to me and said, "You're making a huge mistake." And I said, "I'm sorry that you feel that way, and I really care about you. But I have to do this for me in the next step of my chapter. I need that." So I didn't understand trust and safety at the age I was young, 25, 27. But I can tell you how much when we were sharing, I could feel that, not in my mind, in my body. I completely know what it feels like to feel unsafe. Mm-hmm. So one of the opportunities for leaders is, have you ever felt unsafe? And just think about what that felt and look at your people and think, may they be in the same position? Sometimes as humans, we either move away from pain or we move towards pleasure. 80% of us move away from pain. Sometimes it's the lesson that teaches us the pain. Mm-hmm. I'm going to come to, just as we move into our last couple questions of the episode of our recording here. But recruitment and retentions aren't new challenges, But what I can say as a speaker, I'm getting asked to speak on these topics as much today as I was in the middle of the pandemic. Probably more because the conversation and problems still exist. What do you feel kind of are 2 critical areas that people need to kind of tactically, Val, if we move to the ops side? For our ops-minded people, it's like, tell me the steps. What are the changes that people need to make, tech layers into improve retention and recruitment heading into 2025.
And I think you made a good point there too, talking about it hasn't changed. It was, you were having the same conversations during the pandemic. I was having the same conversations 15 years ago when I was in HR for a large restaurant company, right? It's always been a thing. It's been hard for restaurants to recruit and retain. So I think it goes back to that same thing. If I had to think of 2 things that people can do immediately, and it seems hard, but just trying to think about things different, is that flexibility piece. Even back again 15 years ago, a woman came back from mat leave and she wanted to work part-time and they were saying, no. And I said, yes, let's try it. Let's do it. And it worked. And she stayed there for over 20 years, right? So that thing, the flexibility, trying to figure out what you can do to keep good people in the industry that can't just work the regular way. And the second thing, and this is something Peter and you both brought up about that different generation, the generations that are coming in now, Gen Z, younger millennials, that work-life integration is the second thing. There has to be, they want to feel, and it ties into everything. They want to feel a part of something. They want their work to be meaningful. They want things to be integrated. And again, even years ago, I remember a server quitting because their manager didn't know the name of their dog. And we were, Gen X's or boomers, whatever. We're like, what? Who cares? But they wanted their managers to know them. So flexibility, thinking things differently, and that work-life integration, that younger generation wants them. And if they're really great, we want to keep them in the industry. So think about how you can integrate those things a bit better in the day-to-day restaurant ops stuff.
And I think the language there is something like we just wrote down, if you got a pen in front of you, you have your phone. Work-life integration. What does that mean? What does that mean to you? That's new language for me, but that's really clear for me. And the subject of, hey, they didn't know my dog's name. I was in a workshop session and I walked in, 20 leaders in a massive boardroom, big fancy stuff going on. And I said, congratulations on your engagement. And the whole room went quiet. So I stopped and said, does nobody else know that our friend got engaged? I'm like, okay, we're gonna change the agenda for today. We're gonna talk about us as people. And when we understand and can see each other, and my belief is if we make people feel seen, valued, and heard, I just got out of the way. They were just head down working so hard. They weren't doing anything wrong. They really care about each other. They're a great team. They just didn't find the pause and the time to connect. They couldn't have the lunch. They couldn't have the coffee. Mm-hmm. They couldn't have the beer if that's appropriate for your organization.
Yeah, and think about the industry we're in too, right? Hospitality, it's restaurants. People are already going to be more hospitable, right? So they crave the connection more than other industries probably. So that's even more important in our industry to have that sort of feeling too.
Peter, anything to add on that topic?
Yeah, no, sure. I think it's valuable. We talked about retention, talked about recognizing great performance, how you do that based on the generations. It's also about is there ways potentially to make the work easier, right? You're going to come to work. In my day, it was just go out there, and if you're not bleeding, you're not trying. But we can make the job easier for the employees, and certainly from an Entegra perspective, we feel very strongly about how can we help operators do things easier, make work for their employees easier. If I'm an individual who's doing the ordering in my kitchen, and I have to go through dozens, hundreds, thousands of items, but I'm also under pressure to try to save costs or things like that. Well, we have tools that can help people do that very easily. That are attached to your ordering portal that say, hey, if you get this one, you're going to save money. And the characteristics of this product are very similar to the one you're getting, and there's an opportunity for you to do that. So I'm adding value to my organization because I'm saving some money. I'm saving myself time, so the work is a little bit easier, and I think it works. There's obligation is a strong word, but certainly we're not trying to make the work harder, right? If the work is easier, if an employee is adding value, part of something to make the hospitality industry experience, the job that you're doing, more valuable and more successful, and I think that's powerful.
And I think one thing you shared up front there is that part of us, like I grew up in Gen X, and if it wasn't hard, I wasn't valued. If I didn't make it, leadership can be easier. I've worked with a really high-level coach who's cost me a ton of money. If I go back to said, stop making it so hard. You just make things difficult, man. And then when you make them difficult, I make them difficult for people around me. I'm sure Val might have had some people who've worked for me over the years reach out to her for employment. At my younger age and my immaturity, I was hard to work around. And the side is hard or working long hours doesn't necessarily mean that creates I am valuable. Mm-hmm. And that's a me story. That's not a outcome story. Mm-hmm. It's not hard. I'm not valued. I'm not seen. I'm not needed. And that's something I've had to work on reprogramming. And it's a work in progress. And I think we can hear that we're all continuing to work on ourselves. But also when it just looks to operationally, you have partners that can come forward like Entegra that have the opportunity to make your jobs easier and more fluid. Be curious and look. And I love that that's some suppliers taking that approach and some aren't. And I think it's the competitive point of difference that creates a change. Yeah. As we move into our last questions, we're just going to go ahead in the last couple of minutes. If we look to, well, what are some things around recruitment and retention as we look into 2025 that people might not be aware of? We talk, I don't want to plant seeds, but just there's so much innovation and change, even with an AI base, not a conversation for today, but what's coming for 2025?
That's what I was going to speak of. And Peter just actually mentioned it too, making things easier. So the whole AI thing, in fact, is really, and I was, like, I think a lot of people are, Gen X or old or whatever, is like, I don't know, it seems kind of freaky to me. But, once I went to a conference and they were speaking about hospitality HR people and AI, and just saying it will be one of the industries that will be least affected because of that human connection we were just speaking about. But it'll make things easier because it'll just, like Peter was saying, take more of the administrative stuff out of it. So instead of having to spend time on scheduling or ordering or answering questions about benefits, you can have a chat box. You can use AI to do all those administrative things so that the managers can focus on that emotional connection, can sit down with people more. It doesn't have to be, AI is going to take people's jobs away. AI is going to make the mundane administrative tasks a lot easier so that the managers can spend more of that time connecting with their employees. And AI, there was MIT and Stanford did a study for specifically hospitality people. It will increase retention by 40%, AI, and it'll decrease guest complaints by 20-something%. So that's huge. And the other thing was that it'll make traditional training to get to some of the same position, 6 months with traditional training and 2 months with more of this AI training. So it's going to take a lot of, like Peter said, it'll make things simpler. And I think that's something that even the last couple of months, I've noticed more people using AI and opening their minds that it's not a weird robot futuristic thing. It's just going to make their jobs easier, which will make them give more time with their people, which will increase retention, which will attract more people to our industry. So it's kind of a win-win, I think. So that AI thing, we keep hearing it, but it's like, it's facts. It's going to really make things a lot easier.
And my best practice share on AI is just be curious, right? So what Val shared, it might think, well, big organizations have the opportunity. When you really look, as AI looks to scale, they need a user base and the cost is low. And all the conferences I've been to, the speakers on AI, download whichever you choose to. I don't want to plug it, but if you choose ChatGPT, I wake up every morning and ask ChatGPT a question, not because I want to. Trust me, I do not necessarily want to. But it allows me the opportunity to get used to it. There's 300 million active users on a rate as of today on something like ChatGPT. Not plugging it, there's lots of options. Be curious, be playful, and look at the integration because you'd be surprised at how low cost and efficient it can be. Even something like resume filtering. The number one complaint I get is we're getting too many unqualified resumes. My managers don't go through them thoroughly, and we have a shortage. It's actually the filter of the resume applications. It's not actually we don't have candidates. So we can use an ability of, and let me explain filters. It has AI built into its filters.
Yeah.
Make a small investment, it'll help you filter, be more productive, save you time. But Peter, as we come back to you in our closing questions, what strategies or tools does Entegra provide to help industry leaders in some of these?
Yeah, so AI, Entegra Shopping Assistant, I just alluded to it a second ago, it is an AI-enabled tool. So it is learning as you are utilizing the tool to make your choices for the items, the supplies that you use in your kitchen. It learns as you go, so it makes it faster, simpler, applies more savings. We're also, we still have analog, we still have people working, right? That's my department, the client services. We are your de facto procurement team. We help you procure items that are going to drive cost savings in your organization. It can be food, it can be non-food, it can be people, right? We have organizations that can help staff for you. So, Staff Shop is a good example. With Trillium is another one. Answer Team is another one. So there's all kinds of different things from an AI perspective. There's still the human touch perspective. It's an interesting world. I think that generationally, I think we have lots of opportunities to maximize all of those. There's such a supply. Again, I'll go back to the beginning, 45 minutes ago when we started. There's an abundance of people. We just need to know how to bring them in and know how to keep them. And then if we can apply some tools, Entegra can help you do that, to hold on to them and have them be a meaningful, engaged employee, you're going to win. Your organization is going to be successful.
Absolutely brilliant. And as we look to kind of wrap up here, 45 minutes right on the mark. I think we did pretty good, team. But the one thing I want you to ask yourself a question. You've just been shared a lot, and we will cut some of the content so you can digest it in smaller bites. But what's the benefit if you do take some of Val's experience sharing? And it is experience sharing. We're not plugging anything. This is a generous opportunity to share thought leadership on a platform that's digital. So what's the benefit if you do? And what's the risk if you don't? And I'm not trying to be dramatic on the risk side, but the benefit if you stay curious, take small action in the direction of your goals, and take some of these best practices forward, I think it could have an impact. We shared some context and some strategies, and we want to be here to support you execute. We will not only provide, obviously, this recording, but we'll provide other resources to support your journey. Val, I wanted to thank you. Peter, I wanted to thank you for your incredible sharing today. And also, we wouldn't be here without our support from the team at Entegra, creating the space and opportunity. Great episode here today, and I hope the audience takes value. Thank you, Val. Thank you, Peter.
Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Smart businesses are working with group purchasing organizations. Smarter businesses are working with Entegra. That's because we are much more than a GPO. We provide more experience, more product categories, and more operational solutions. Entegra is expert advice, quality and flexibility, purchasing power, and partnership to optimize your operations, elevating guest experience while saving on goods and services with the insights to keep your operations ahead. We know the challenges of operating in restaurants, lodging, senior living, golf, leisure, faith-based organizations, education, and acute care. So we provide services and solutions to help you maximize your profit margins. Save up to 30% on nearly everything you buy. From food to furniture, fixtures, uniforms, linens, capital equipment, services, energy, cleaning, and even training. Add in advice from experts who know your industry, and there's no better partner to take on inflation than Entegra. With a deep bench of procurement experts monitoring prices, contracts, and supply chains, we help you find cost-effective ingredient options that exceed your customers' expectations. At Entegra, your spend is always in your view and in your control, with data analytics and digital tools to ensure you're always getting the insights to operate more efficiently. Gain easy access to temporary and long-term staffing, your most frequently purchased products, and solutions for waste reduction and energy usage to keep your customers returning and your operations thriving. Unlock expert insights, unmatched purchasing, and unlimited performance for your business. Meet Entegra and see the difference today.